everyone, it's Amalia, founder of S.T.E.M Braids Beyond and host of the Silver Bullet S.T.E.M podcast. Today, I have an incredible guest. We've been laughing before the podcast started, so I know that this is probably going to be the theme of the entire interview. I can't wait for you guys to meet the guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Detrich Wiley. I am a product manager, project manager, and just happy to be here today to support the STEM effort. I'm a STEM girl, been a STEM girl all of my life, and I can't wait to share, talk, and grow the opportunity to pull some other people into this space with us.
How can anybody get in touch with you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Detrich Wiley, last name Wiley. I also have a podcast, the Hard Headed Way podcast. So if you want to email the Hard Headed Way podcast at gmail.com, is also an opportunity for you guys to reach out to me.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. Why is it called the Hard Headed podcast?
Oh, listen. So being a STEM girl, I tell people all the time, and this may not be true for everybody, but it's the lane from which I function. Most of the time, my responses, my engagement is based off of information, off of data, off of thinking, and so I lead with my head, not
Yeah.
my heart. And so I joke that it's the heart-headed way because I am a head surrounded by a bunch of hearts. And so the conversations that I have with people are often people that are a part of my village, but approach things with a much more of an emotional
Mm,
lead. And so that's the premise of it, the heart-headed way.
I love it.
Yeah.
You shared your job, which is a product project manager. What is the difference between the two? Because in the underrepresented community, people may not understand the difference. So
Yeah.
bring us along.
So I would call a product manager, I call them mini CEOs of a product. So you think about your entrepreneurs who are launching a business. You deal with every spoke on the wheel, from thinking about your marketing and thinking about the channels for which you're marketing, the cost, whatever, all the things that it takes to stand up a product. That is essentially what a product manager's role is. How do I launch it? How do I grow it, mature it? How do I change it? Think about your iPhone 1 up to now iPhone 15. You have product managers that are driving those conversations for how they continue to grow and evolve the iPhone. From a project manager, they are the navigation. So a product manager is going to tell you the address to Houston. The project manager is going to drive to Houston to the address that you give.
Oh, I love it. So in your intro, you said that you've always been in STEM. Was working in STEM your childhood dream, or is it something you discovered as an adult?
It's it was, I won't say working in STEM was always a childhood dream. I would just say I navigated towards things. So for me, being in STEM, my degree is in math, but math was always my favorite subject. I always tell people, well, math and science were always my better subjects. I write and I write well, but where I thrived and where I had the most fun was in math. I tell people all the time, if you've seen Hidden Figures, Taraji's um, um, the child version of her in that movie, you can see numbers always out in front of her and how she's breaking down things. And that was me. I was always looking at stuff, trying to break it down into a way where I understood it and then translate it into something that made sense to me. So that's always been how I sat down and approached just everyday life. How do those puzzle pieces fit together in a way that makes sense to me?
Wow. So you said you've always been good in math and science academically. So your math degree, was that a direct product of high school? Like for most underrepresented students, like STEM is, even if you're good in numbers, you might be pushed into accounting
Yeah.
or
Um,
finance.
yeah.
What, how did you navigate to math?
So I'll be honest, I'll tell everybody I was supposed to be a pharmacist. I
Mm,
took organic chemistry because, again, that was the one thing. Most of the time for math, people always associated being a math teacher. I knew that that wasn't my thing. I didn't want to be a math. And so for that, I started out getting a degree in biology and deciding that I was going to go on to school to be a pharmacist and get my doctorate in pharmacy. Well, again, I liked science, but it wasn't my place where I had the most enjoyment. And so I was in my freshman year of college and I took, no, I'm sorry, my sophomore year of college, and I took organic chemistry. And I took organic chemistry and accounting that semester, and both of which I hated both classes. I did not enjoy them. Could I do them? Yes, but I hated it. And so I decided at that point I would switch over to something like computer science. Well, even for that, while I was good at it, I did not enjoy it. So I was in my junior year and I took differential equations. It was a doctor, a professor. Her name is Dr. Cox, and I cannot think of her first name, but the way she was teaching differential equations, I was like, I want to learn math. I want to go further with math. Math gave me such an opportunity to explore. And so for that, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So there began my opportunity for me to say, if I switch my major over to math, what are the opportunities out there that are associated with it? And so I started seeing where a lot of people that were looking for developers, they wanted you to have a computer science or math degree. Okay, I didn't even know that. And
Right.
so it continued to evolve from there. And I was like, okay, there's a whole world out here that's associated with math that I don't have to be a mathematician. I don't have to be, my minor is statistics. And so I didn't have to be an actuarial. I
Right.
had an opportunity to look at something where I got to put my puzzle pieces together like I like from a math perspective, and get to explore that had nothing to do with the things that people had presented to me before. And it was well beyond teaching. And so that's how I landed in project management, developing, and all those things. That is purely how I landed there, only by chance, because I decided I just didn't want to get a computer science degree.
I love what you said. And in almost every podcast, I share this, that the STEM gap is not due to a lack of aptitude, it's due to a lack of knowledge.
Yep.
The way STEM is being taught or marketed, it's tribal, it's exclusive too.
Yeah.
And because nobody's breaking it down, we don't see it as
Yeah.
something like I started out as an accounting major because if you're good with numbers, my parents' understanding is accounting is the field.
Yeah.
Well, I hated account. I mean, several classes in, and my teacher's like, "This is the peak of what? This is it. I'm smarter than this." But I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what that was. It was during my master's that I realized this is a thing I was looking for. But had I not done a master's, I literally would have just gone through thinking,
Yeah.
math is or not a number aptitude just means accounting or finance,
Yeah.
not really there was a world beyond it. So I just love what you just said.
Yeah. And I would go on to add this too, is that what I value, or what I see by way of math, is associated with creativity for me. So
Ooh,
what somebody can do in drawing, I can do with my analytics and numbers and my thinking and my approach. And and I say this all the time, the beauty of what degree or background in STEM gets you is that it gives you an opportunity to know that you can get to the same point from two different places,
absolutely.
meaning you always know that there is a different perspective to consider, number one. And so
Yeah,
my one way of thinking isn't the way, it's a way for us to get to our destination. And so for me, that gives me creativity with my thinking that I didn't have with my hand in drawing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In hindsight, I mean, because you found your path in college, sorry.
Mhm.
In hindsight, do you think that you had all of the makings of the job or STEM interests you demonstrated now, and wish that maybe you had been introduced to some of the things that could have empowered the path you're on now as a child or even in high school?
I don't think I tell you what I think was the light bulb for me that I wished I had sooner. So for me, and like you said, when you took the accounting class and you're like, is this it? This is like the highlight of accounting. For me, the value that I've gained from my use of STEM and my background in STEM, I don't believe that anybody pushed the part of the exploration that STEM gives you. And so for me, STEM was an opportunity or a means to an end. You know math, oh, that's good. You are smart and you know how to do 3 times 2. But using it as a way to explore and all of that, that bulb wasn't pushed, I didn't recognize it until later on. It was just not, that's not how it was presented to me. You're good at math, then you should go do math. And so, and I tell people this all the time. I had a girlfriend who could do hair. I envied her because I wasn't good with my hands. I was like, she could put clothes together really nicely. And so the way I viewed her was she had room to explore. My
Mhm.
skill set didn't yield that, in my opinion. That's not how it's presented to me. And so it was that revelation that, you know what STEM has given me? It's given me the ability to be able to sit down, take a problem or take a vision and be able to craft it in a way that I don't know that my friend who's good with her hands could do. And so it was that revelation that I didn't get until now. It's been recent years, I would add, that's been something I've been able to affirm.
Oh, wow. I mean, there's a whole lot there, but I'm gonna stay on topic.
I told you I like to talk. I told you I like to talk.
I love it. Please bring it. The so one of the things you talk about is opportunity, and the way it is pushed, in my opinion, in the underrepresented community is opportunities is tied to entertainment, sports, music. Nobody's saying STEM is opportunities, sweeties. Come over here. And so talk about the opportunity. You've talked a little bit about the opportunity it gives, but one of the things I want to be able to tie it to, I know it's not NBA level money, but do you feel like you have been able to provide for yourself a very comfortable lifestyle, different to maybe the economics of how you were raised or what you thought possible for yourself and our community?
Oh, absolutely. And
Or-
it's again, I think it's one of those hidden gems, right? I think that the NBA and all the jobs that are out front, being a superstar, those are the sexy jobs, right? Like those are the jobs that people that puts you out front. And for me, this job actually puts you out front too. And I think that the reason that it's highly overlooked and it's highly undermined from a value perspective, because it is great pay. Let me just say that. I'll tell everybody it's great pay. It comes with great, obviously, responsibility, but you have an ability to shape the future of so much. Again, thinking about the iPhone and where it is today, there is a product manager that is somewhere helping define what we roll out next for the next iPhone, right? And so for me, I think where the village, and I'm hoping that we continue to see it grow, especially for girls in STEM, is that they realize that while you may see a lot of men in the room, it may not seem like it's very fun when you think about the impact, right? And so I'm not saying NBA players and superstars don't have impact. When I think about my legacy, I know that I'm building something and somebody is leveraging the outcome of what I've built, what I've helped put together from a creative standpoint. And so I just think it's about creating more conversations like what you're doing here and showing people the other side of the coin, that maybe you don't see me all on the news and I'm not all out front, but I know that in this space that I exist, I have made a great impact with the work that I do.
Absolutely. And just to piggyback off what you're saying, I may have said this before in another podcast, but only 20% of the athletes that pursue college scholarship D1 and D2 are selected. And so when you have that many kids being turned away and nobody's saying, hey, there's the STEM correlation. Here's how you can use what you've already learned to pursue a field in STEM.
Yep.
It doesn't mean that you're not good at anything else because you were turned away. Maybe you're meant to. And the sad thing is that $3.6 billion in college scholarships is unused every year. And nobody's
Yeah.
saying these D3 and D4 school students, hey, you can do something else with that. It's like, if you're not entertaining us,
Yeah.
we're okay putting you behind bars. We're okay with you living
Oh
some
gosh.
And this is the reason why I do this work, because in Baltimore, I see way too many talented kids
Yeah.
falling by the wayside because the system doesn't understand how to meet the need.
Yeah.
What
100% agree with you on that.
and let me jump into this. What sort of uh, background were you raised in? Were you raised in the suburbs? Were you raised in the inner city? Talk to us.
So my dad died when I was 2, and so my mom raised us off of a teacher's salary, which is
Wow.
why I didn't want to be a teacher. Listen. My mom was a go to her kids in her classrooms games. People don't realize what all teachers have to do. So watching her go through that and knowing the little bit of pay she lived off of, I was like, I never want to be a teacher. But one of the things that my mom did, again, and I think this is about for especially for a generation that's coming up now, is about just the exposure and the opportunity to just explore, right? Like you don't see a lot of kids that these days that want to, my youngest son plays video games, and so one of the things I get on to him about all the time is thinking. We want to invest in thinkers. We want to invest in people who can sit down and figure out a problem. Again, we may not have the best answer, but to come up with an answer that we can find some supporting whatever data documentation to say, this is why I got to this location. And so for me, with my mom, while I won't say we had everything. I think as a teacher, she understood the value of putting me in a room where I got to absorb and learn things from other people. And she put me in places for which I hated. I didn't like it. There was this thing back in the day called Odyssey of the Mind. And when I tell you, I felt like I didn't fit in the room. I was one of a few Black kids. And that's the thing for me. I always, and I'm sure you do this too, when I go into a room, I do scan the room to see if there's anybody else in the room that looks like me. That started as a kid. Who else in the room looks like me? Who else in the room do I maybe have some kind of commonality with or anything like that? And so she put me in that, and I remember it's the most outstanding thought of my childhood. And they asked this question, name a ship. And as the kids were going around the room, people said friendship and all these other ships that I didn't think about, because I'm literal. I'm like, I don't know, like what, like ship, like a barter ship. I don't know. I came up with something, and I remember that feeling in that moment of, oh my God, I shrank, and I was so embarrassed because my answer wasn't as creative. And from that moment forward, I thought about how I showed up. And again, that was like 3rd grade. I remember that. So going forward, being pushed out in these spaces where it's not a lot of us in those STEM rooms, it's not a lot of us in these meetings and these places for which I exist for STEM, and feeling like I just didn't fit. I just didn't have what it takes. And so for me, it gave me, again, STEM has given me an opportunity to say, maybe that's just not my lane over there. This is mine over here. And so that's the beauty of it. You have so many layers to it, so many opportunities associated with STEM. I don't have to fit in the same box as Amalia. I can fit into Detrich's box. And so that's what I had to learn. And to me, that's what STEM has given me an opportunity to put my footprint where it's best for me, not to use yours, if that makes sense.
It does. My next question is going to be about imposter syndrome, but I'll tell you this very interesting thing. You said about walking into rooms and scanning. So I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago, and the culture is, when I was growing up, was 90%, 96% Black.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what it is to walk into a room and scan. I learned that as a skill of coping with what it means to be Black in America.
Wow.
My daughter always, I recently said this to her, I said, I often forget I'm Black. And she's like, you do? Because I wasn't raised in a society where Black was a checkbox. Everybody's Black. What you mean?
Whoa.
And When I recently traveled, I once again forgot that I was Black. I never had to stop and think, who do I speak to? Because I need to find the next person who looks like me. Sometimes I would walk up and someone would be surprised. And then I was like, and then I think, oh shoot, that person sees me as Black. But I don't operate in the
Mm,
world. There are limitations I have
yeah.
that I see the world through, but being Black is not one of them. And so there,
My imposter syndrome, and I've struggled with it, has nothing to do with that at all. It has everything to do with I have to be okay with not being perfect. That, and as a product manager, that has been the greatest learning, is that you go with what you have now. If we had waited on the iPhone, just think about the money. And I'm going to keep using this example. Just think about if Apple had waited until iPhone 15 to release, they lost out on money from iPhone 1 all the way to iPhone 15. And so
and
for me,
brand recognition.
yes, and the recognition and the reputation and
Yeah.
all the things that have come with it. And the beauty of what they've done is we've got to see how they evolved and how they took technology further. I call it living out loud. And so for me, I've never been a live out loud person. And so that is where my imposter syndrome that I struggle with. I talk about having a podcast, and I kept, when people ask me, and I was like, why? I don't have imposter syndrome. If I got a podcast, I'm a podcaster, right? Like, I don't, if I'm a product manager, I'm not pretending to be a product manager. I had to look at the definition of imposter syndrome. I'm not pretending to be any of these things. I am these things. And so, but again, being a woman in a room, the minority a lot of times in the room, it's not that I have to, I feel the need to second guess myself, because let me just tell you, Dee knows she's as good as at what she does. Like you said, who else gonna be at the top but me? Absolutely, 100%. The restraint or the pause I have when I walk into the room has a lot to do with, I just know they see me as a Black woman. And for me, there is a brand that a Black woman has on her back when she walks into the room before she even opens her mouth. And so when I open my mouth and I start to speak, I see them lean in. I see them change their body positioning, because they're like, oh, she
Yeah.
knows what she's talking about. And so, and I live for those moments. I live for those moments to change your mind, Amalia. Like that is my goal. When I go into the room, my preparation has everything to do with shocking you, because you're so unsure of what's about to come out of my mouth and what I know. That is my goal when I walk into a room. And that's for anybody. It could be black, white, blue. I don't care who's in the room. It's for me to come in and rock your world. And so for me, imposter syndrome is an everyday thing that I have to challenge myself about me. I'm my greatest bully. I'm my greatest critic. I don't worry about the people necessarily. It's just I need to learn to be okay with living out loud to a certain degree, and that has everything to do with me, not even things that other people have said and done.
So I have a personal question that segues off of that.
Oh Lord.
Do you feel like it's burdensome to walk into the room feeling like you need to show up a certain way? That's and wow the group. And do you feel it pulls away from the natural essence of the creativity or what you have to offer, because you now can no longer deliver what is your best thing? You have to deliver something that you feel like one ups someone else.
Yeah. The burden for me has to do with, I want to ensure that other women and men of my color have that same opportunity. So, and for me, and this is a personal thing, I'm pretty sure that people will disagree, is that I feel like I have to show up as a 10 always. Even if the people that are on my team are fives, I still have to show up as a 10, right? Like I can be a 7 and shine in that room with those fives, but I'm always showing up as a 10. The how I show up or shift my messaging or challenge the room I walk in has everything to do with eliminating misconceptions about Black women. Like, we can disagree, and you don't have to get all this from us all the time, right? We can have a healthy discussion or debate, and we're still friends on the other side of that, right? And so it has nothing to do with my skill set. It has everything to do with my social set, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So for me, the fear of me has everything to do with how they may fear my response if they don't like it, if they disagree with it. Nothing to do with if I'm right or wrong. There's no question about my right or wrong. It's a question of what if there's a gap in there. And let me just say this too. The other part about that is I want to always create an environment where it's inviting, not just for the people in the room, for me and you to have a conversation, for me, that a person that I mentor, because this is the thing, we never stop learning. We
Yeah.
never stop creating these opportunities to expand our mental Rolodex. But I also have to bridge a gap between my confidence and my skill and what I can do, but still being open to being coachable
Yeah.
and learn new things. And I think to me that's the challenge for that room, is that I need them to know from a social aspect, I I can be in this room and grow and change with you. I don't have to be kicked out because I disagreed with you and I told you so much, right? Like so I want to eliminate that brand that's put on us that we can't be professional when
Yeah.
challenged in our. And
Right.
so I'm going to get out of my lane because I want to connect your dot to my dot. And so
That's
I'm going to ask you things about your job, about what you do. How did you come to that conclusion? Why this? Why that? You know, we used to tell kids all the time, don't stop asking me why. Just do what I told you to do. I'm the kid. I'm the kid that wanted to know why. And so I often tell people, and I mentor a girl, and I told her this recently. When I meet people, that's the first thing I tell them about me is that, hey, I'm D. And one of the things you'll learn about me is I ask a lot of questions. So please, if it feels like I'm encroaching upon your space, it has nothing to do with you. It's me trying to learn how I function alongside you. How do I make my pieces connect to your pieces better? And so for that, I ask a lot of questions. And so usually that eliminates a lot
right.
of the anxiety or people thinking that I'm trying to
Yeah.
show them up or say
Right.
they're not doing their job.
Right.
And usually and so for that, I heard Carla Harris say this. And she said this a long time ago. She said, how you introduce yourself is what people will say about you when you walk out of the room. And so I tested it. And I tested it with that very thing. I said, hey, I'm D. I ask a lot of questions every meeting. And so it's a joke now when people meet me. Hey, I heard that you ask a lot of questions. I said, I do. Somebody told you about me already. And so it eliminates what, again, to me is this preconceived view of maybe I didn't smile when I first walked in the room, or maybe I was very, I can't, my questions were very difficult to navigate. And so it eliminates that imposition that sometimes my questions may create, and
Wow.
at least lets them know I don't want your job. Amalia, if you couldn't sing, as your vocal coach, I should tell you, don't go on American Idol. Like, don't do that to yourself. Why would you do that, Amalia? Why would I
Right.
do that to you, Amalia? And so for me, I had no vocal coach to say, you can't go in the room like that. Hey, be authentic, but be authentic and show up in a lane that is comfortable for you, but you can't do X, Y, and Z. And that's the truth of it. And so what I had to do, and you said this, is that you're used to being like, what is that, like, I am the black person, I am going to show up this way. I had to learn that I could still tell my jokes, I could still do all the things that I wanted to do. I just had to find a space that was comfortable for me and not offensive to others, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Whew. Well,
STEM means to me having an opportunity to leave a legacy, shape the future in a way that seemingly makes me proud, number one. But two, I can walk away and say, I did that. And because I did that, I made it better. I added value in a place that not only do I walk away and I see, but people get to live it and experience it every day. That's what it means. It's exploring outside of my lane, but getting to grow in my space in my own lane, if that makes sense.
So I had to Google the word because as you were describing it, I was like, she sounds like she's saying STEM is indelible. And I had to Google, I was like, girl, you with these big words, sometimes you gotta Google this. But that's what it is, you know, about leaving. My grammar teacher would be proud. Well, I thank you so much for your time today and the gems you have shared. Any closing words?
No, I first of all, thank you for having me. This was great. This was fun. And one of the things I'll say is you continue to grow your platform. If there's anything that I can do to help support it and get the messaging out, I will do that because I think the work that you're doing is amazing. And I know that, when we talk about STEM, it's well beyond girls, but I love the girl power that I see in
Mhm.
STEM and how it's growing, and how I see like the head product girl over at Google, and there's one over at LinkedIn. It's amazing to me to see that. And so for me, whatever it takes to grow this village, girl, kudos to you, and I support all of the things that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here. Bye, everybody.